Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I'm driving a FedEx. I've got something on my mind that's going on right now, but it's a recurring problem. As you can see from the title, there are people out there who do not treat reptiles well. Sometimes horrifically, right? You know, there's levels of neglect into abuse. And while, of course, there's a lot of carryover from people who are abusive, right? People abuse dogs and cats too. People abuse other people. However, there's something a bit interesting with some of the people who will neglect or abuse reptiles. If they were to see someone neglecting a dog, they would be horrified. But for some reason, when it's a snake, they don't care. And so what's going on right now is I get this call from this kind gentleman who just bought a house, and the seller left a snake behind in a tank. And he doesn't know when the last time this poor animal has been cleaned or watered or fed. Guy doesn't seem interested in coming to get it. Just like, oh, this is a great opportunity to ditch an animal. Who cares what happens to it? So, yes, this is despicable. This is just awful. Takes kind of a scummy person to do something like that, in my opinion. But that's not really even what I'm getting at here. What I want to talk about is, what can the rest of us do to avoid, mitigate, fix some of these issues? Those of us who would not abandon or neglect an animal, and when I say abandon, I don't mean, rehome responsibly. That's fine. I've talked about this before on the vlog, where, of course, if you purchase an animal, it should be with the mindset that you're going to keep it. You're going to take care of it, that even if it becomes inconvenient, you're going to do your absolute best for it. But things come up in our lives, and if you can find it a safe, responsible home, and you need to do that, that's fine. But abandoning, leaving them in a box on the doorstep of a Petco, like, come on. Certainly the, physical abuse, withholding food and water, not treating injuries, whatever. What can the rest of us do to avoid these problems? And some people just throw up their hands like, there's nothing I can do. Well, there's another somewhat disturbing, or at least disappointing, aspect to certain people in the reptile hobby, where a lot of people who are breeders, they don't want to know. They don't want there to be anything they can do, because that's more work on their part, might mean lost sales. They don't want to know if someone is going to be neglecting this animal, because they need to make the sale. Well, that's a problem, right? So these people want to throw up their hands and be like, I wish there was something I could do, but I'm not the one, slapping this animal around. I'm not the one leaving it untreated if it's got a burn. I'm not the one leaving it without water for too long, whatever. So there's nothing I can do. Well, there's some things you can do. You can't fix other people's stupidness. You can't. But you can certainly vet your customers somewhat. And I'm not in favor of like making people fill out giant packets. I've told this story before. I went to buy a dog, and the lady was like, all right, I just need you to fill this out. And it was like a 14-page thing. And she wanted to know how will you care for this dog when you're in the bathroom? Like, whoa, lady. Okay. But, so I'm not talking about that, but have a conversation with your buyers before you take their money. Make sure that you at least get a little tiny bit of a feel, of a vibe of some kind. And if you have a bad vibe, do something about it, you know? Ask them a bit more, probe a bit deeper. I love that Morph Market is now allowing us to give ratings to our buyers. It's not only seller ratings, right? So dig a little bit, just a little bit. That's one thing you can do. Vet your buyers. Kind of maybe establish some expectations where, you know, you're like, as part of your communication back and forth, you're like, you know, here's the husbandry needs. You can even ask, be like, all right, are you ready? If somebody does not have an enclosure ready, maybe be like, okay, well, let's just wait on shipping until your enclosure's ready. And if they throw a fit, that is a red flag. If it's too cold or too hot to ship and the buyer is pressuring you, that's a red flag, because their impatience is more important to them than the safety of the animal. That is a huge red flag for me. I have refused sales to people. Even a $50 normal ball python, I have refused these sales. I've refused massive sales to people, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars being offered to me, and I turned them down because it was sketchy. And I was like, this person doesn't care if this animal is well or not. And I, at first, was very, very polite, you know, asking kind of follow-up questions like, oh, hold on, I have a question about this thing you said. They got super defensive, super angry. Just, I'm giving you money. Will you just send me my darn snake or whatever? No, actually, I need to know the answer to my very simple question, you know. Anyways, so if you see a red flag in somebody as the seller, I do think you have an ethical responsibility to act. I'm sorry if you lose sales. I hate losing sales, right? Someone wants to give me money and I say no, that's, right? But got to do it sometimes. This doesn't come up for me very often, you know, maybe 5 times ever in my 8-9 years of selling snakes. But I've had people offer me illegal animals. They know I'm into sail fins, and they have ways of getting me animals that I should not be able to get. And I'm like, no, man. And now I know for a fact I'm not going to sell to you. You know, when you are smuggling things in dangerous situations, you know some of them are going to die in this shipment, and you don't care because it's money, well, then you don't care enough about the animals. I'm not going to sell to you even if it's legal now, right? And that makes people mad. But anyway, so I didn't really want to, you know, dive into too many examples of how people are terrible to animals. I more wanted to talk about what can we do as the responsible keepers, those who would not do any of these terrible things to animals. What can we do? Well, I mean, I've told you a little bit. I know that there's a big push to call people out online, you know. Yeah, I can get behind that somewhat. You know, actually naming names. No one likes to do it. Well, some people like to do it, but they're not always the most helpful people. But naming names if someone's doing something truly despicable, yeah, I mean, they need to be revealed to everybody else so that people know not to deal with them. So be active on social media in a responsible way, I guess. Educate the public. A lot of neglect and even abuse is occurring because of ignorance, not malicious intent. I know that's hard for some people to understand, but some of these are newcomers. Some of these people were taught incorrect things a long time ago and never realized that's not how it really is. And there's people who, they keep their reptiles without water, and they offer them water once a week or even less frequently. And while there's probably some species that can handle that, there's a lot more species that cannot handle that. And if they don't realize that, they're not thinking, oh, I'm going to neglect this animal, I'm too lazy to fill. They're just like, oh, well, they make a big mess when I leave water in there 24/7, so I'll just make sure they get a drink when they need it. Well, for a lot of animals, that is bad, bad, bad news, right? But they don't necessarily know that. So they need to know that. We need to tell them. But when you just find someone doing that and you blast them on Facebook or on the comment section or wherever you are, and you're just like, this monster didn't, whatever. Well, is that going to help anything? Probably not. That's going to just make people defensive. They're not going to want to deal with you anymore. And they're going to think that you're just a jerk to all the newcomers. But you still need to be able to communicate in a effective, constructive way that particular husbandry technique for most animals is just not acceptable and dangerous, right? And stressful to the animal, and just, it's bad. So be active on social media in a responsible way. Call people out when absolutely necessary. As a seller or someone even just rehoming an animal, be a little bit, trust your intuition, ask some questions, be more concerned with the well-being of these animals you're sending out than just with the cash in hand from the sale. And we really, really can reduce dramatically suffering that these animals go through, right? We absolutely can, and we have to, because we all know this at this point. We've seen so many examples of this. If we do not regulate ourselves, people who don't care about us and actively dislike us and hate what we do are going to regulate us for us. And so let's just have a higher standard, I guess. So that is long enough. I just wanted to talk about this. Maybe another vlog I can talk about some of the really horrible things that do happen to animals. I didn't really want to get into examples. I just wanted a bit of a positive, like, what can we do about it? So that is all. Thank you guys so much for watching. Till next time, we're the Reptile Barn.